Good morning, everyone. I am Bhumika Indulia, Senior Associate Editor at EBC Publishing Private Limited. Welcome all of you to the second SEC SEBI Civis Dialogue. We thank you for your overwhelming response on the first discussion that focused on RITs and invitees. The discussion today will focus on SEBI's recently published consultation paper that proposes the amendment of Para 15 of the Master Circular for credit rating agencies dated May 16, 2024. We have with us today Ms. Sarika Kataria, Deputy General Manager at SEBI. She is a management professional with an experience of more than 2 decades and has been with SEBI as at the helm of policy matters pertaining to intermediaries associated with debt markets such as credit rating agencies, debenture trustees, ESG rating providers, and online bond platforms. Also, a management professional and has a decade-long experience in dealing with policy matters concerning credit rating agencies, debenture trustees, ESG rating providers, and online bond platforms providers. A hearty welcome to both of you for joining us to deep dive into the scope and intent of this consultation. We also have with us today the moderators of this discussion, Ms. Wagda Galotra, who leads the outreach and communication vertical at Civis, an organization that builds dialogue between citizens and government through public consultation. Joining Wagda is my colleague, Mr. Aditya Gupta, a corporate and competition lawyer, currently spearheading the Corporate and Economic Laws Initiative at SEC. Coming to the discussion, as we know that there is a master circular for credit rating agencies that was issued on 16th May 2024, and it complies all the existing circulars related to credit rating agencies, prescribing guidelines for their registration, general obligations, code of conduct applicable to them, etc. The consultation paper that is the subject of our discussion today seeks to amend Para 15 of the Master Circular that deals with the post-default curing period for credit rating agencies to frame policies for the upgradation of default rating to investment grade rating. Without further ado, I would like our moderators to kick in and ask the burning questions so that the market participants can get a clear idea as to the scope of this consultation paper. Over to you, moderator.
We're all here talking about credit rating agencies. There's a lot of mention of those. So I'm just going to get us all started on the fundamentals. My question is to you, Ms. Tiwari. What are credit rating agencies?
So a credit rating agency is a body corporate that is engaged in the business of rating of securities that are listed or proposed to be listed. And of course, on a stock exchange that is recognized by SEBI.
And what exactly are credit rating agencies and how are they interpreted?
So credit ratings are a form of opinion on the creditworthiness of a company, which is expressed in the form of certain standardized symbols. And by standardized, I mean SEBI has prescribed a standard rating scale to be used across CRAs so that there is harmony in the way credit ratings are interpreted and assigned. To explain the credit scale, the credit rating scale ranges from a AAA rating, which is the highest rating that can be assigned to a security, and it ranges down to D, which is a default rating. So any rating above BBB is an investment grade rating, and any rating below it is a junk or non-investment grade rating.
And these are based on your credit performance. So
yeah, right.
We hear the term default a lot around credit performance. Ms. Kataria, could you explain what this concept of default is?
Yes, so default is nothing but a failure. It's a failure of the rated entity to make the payment on a particular due date. So the borrowers, or we can call it to be specific issuers, they are dreaded mainly because of the reputational damage caused by such defaults, and because of such default history raises the cost of borrowing for the entity in future. So this is the main thing.
Okay. Okay. And all of this comes under existing regulations. So could you tell us a little bit about the existing regulations that govern credit rating agencies?
CRAs are generally governed by SEBI CRA regulations which was introduced in the year 1999 and has been amended from time to time. Regulations generally cover the broad aspects related to registration requirements, the obligations, the restrictions, code of conduct, and many other things. Further, the operational aspects, those are related to the functional things of basically the functioning of CRAs, such as the rating process, the disclosure norms, and various other things. These are governed by the master circular issued by SEBI, which is also amended from time to time.
Okay, and that's part of uh, a little bit like the amendments that we are doing now, that we're talking about now. Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Kataria. Over to Aditya.
Do you feel that this definition is relevant in the present scenario?
Yeah, so I'll start off with what NHG 11 actually, how it defines the default. So a default is defined as a delay in making repayment of either interest or principal obligations by even 1 day or by 1 rupee. So any failure by the company to make a payment in full on the, the scheduled due date of the payment. We believe that a default has far-reaching systemic effect on the financial system, a negative one. So considering the importance of a default, the definition of default is as relevant today as it was when it was coined. So we do believe that the definition of default is very relevant and should be maintained as such.
Got your point, and even the 1 rupee threshold, you feel that there needs to be a change there?
Yeah, so all investors are supposed to be treated equally. In case there's a default in payment to even one investor or by even 1 rupee, we believe that it still constitutes a default.
Now that we are clear with the definition of default, we need to know what happens when a default is triggered, and very importantly, what is the responsibility of a credit rating agency in such a scenario?
Yeah, as per the SEBI guidelines, actually, the issuers and the debenture trustees are mandated to intimate about this default to the CRS promptly. That is the first thing that has been told, has to be done as soon as the default is triggered. Now, CRAs, upon the receipt of this, they have to act immediately, which can be also from the other sources other than the debenture trustees and issuers. With regard to the responsibilities of CRA in such scenarios, again, SEBI has prescribed guidelines by way of master circular. When a CRA has to disseminate this information through a press release, wherein they have to state specifically the downgrading of the rating to D immediately, but not later than 2 working days, as prescribed in our circular.
Now that we are aware of the concept of default, we can now direct our attention to para 15 of the master circular in the context of the post default curing period. What is it that para 15 envisages in respect of the upgradation of default rating?
Yeah, so para 15 of the master circular elaborates on the various policies that a CRA is supposed to frame upon the occurrence of a default to enable curing of the default once repayments have been regularized by an issuer. So what the provision prescribes is that generally a period of 90 days is to be given pursuant to the default for a CRA to upgrade the rating back from D to a non-investment grade. And also the policy to upgrade the rating to an investment grade is also to be framed by each CRA and publicly disseminated on their website. So while each CRA may have slightly different policy on this aspect, it has to be published on their website so that investors know how this particular CRA, what stands this particular CRA has towards curing of the default.
Thank you. That's very relevant for our discussion. Having said that, could you also throw light on and explain the scenarios that fundamentally alter the credit risk profile of the defaulting firm?
Okay, so at the outset, we would want to clarify that there are two aspects here. The scenarios that fundamentally alter the credit profile of a defaulting firm are different from the the technical aspects that can lead to default. So these are two separate concepts, which we have also tried to bring out in a consultation paper. The scenarios mentioned in para 15.3 of the master circular, which talk about the various aspects that fundamentally alter the credit profile of a company. These may include, for example, a change in the management, acquisition of the rated entity by some other firm. So these are the changes that are changing the overall credit profile of the rating entity and may therefore warrant, a relook at the rating of the company. And therefore, we want CRAs to have a specific policy to deal with these aspects, where they may make, some sort of exemptions to the general policy of the curing period that they follow.
Now, coming to the moot question, what is it that the working group of the credit rating agencies demand which has prompted this amendment?
Yeah, we have tried to tackle all the issues, not just the technical ones, but also the ones where, the firm may have undergone a drastic change in its credit profile. So we plan to be more comprehensive with the introduction of this amendment.
Thank you, ma'am. Coming to our next question, how can classifying issuers under default in case of a technical default have the consequences of wrong signaling on the market and lender sentiments?
Yes, definitely a very good question because we can see that there is nowhere the technical default term has been defined by SEBI. And as also specified in our consultation paper itself, the working group has requested SEBI to provide a specific policy guidance on the term, definition of the term technical default, so that the policy is applied uniformly across all the CRs.
Very properly explained. Coming to our next question, does the consultation paper envisage exercise of due care and caution by the credit rating agencies in the interest of the borrowers and lenders, as well as the proper functioning of the markets?
Now, as far as signaling is concerned, prompt recognition of the default for any reason and dissemination of such default by CRAs is important for the market and it is a core function of CRA. So, to ensure right signaling to the market, we have reiterated that CRAs may incorporate detailed reasoning for such default or this downgrade in their press release.
That definitely lends us the much needed clarity. Now we come to our last question. And what is the rationale of this amendment and how can it ensure that the debt markets operate in a fair and a transparent manner?
Yeah, so since the proposed amendment to the master circular is aimed at bringing about greater clarity as to what we mean by technical default by listing the scenarios that may constitute technical default, we believe that CRAs, all the CRAs will now be more consistent in the application of these principles, and therefore, this furthers the agenda of, exercising of proper due diligence by the markets.
Now, again, I repeat here that the term technical default, as I said, has not been defined by SEBI. So there was ambiguity across these terms, across the CRAs around this concept. So therefore, this proposed amendment omits the term technical default and instead replaces it with specific scenarios. And this is again for greater clarity and harmonized actions across CRAs. So this is the whole rationale of this amendment.
Thank you, ma'am. This brings us to the end of this discussion. We thank Mrs. Sarika and Ms. Nishtha for taking out time for this engaging and stimulating discussion. Yet again, the regulator has shown a great strength of spirit and promptitude to facilitate inquiry and debate around matters of seminal importance as the present one, for promoting an ethos of participative consultations. These consultations play a major role in systemizing fair play and balancing the fulcrum of our financial systems and securities markets in line with the regulatory developments of other mature jurisdictions. We look forward to having more such discussions. Thank you.